Good today. They're a little bit softer, perhaps, but I thought his comments yesterday were pretty accurate. I don't see any way that a country in Russia's position could allow them, just in their position, could allow them to join NATO. I don't see that happening. And long before President Putin, Russia was very strong on the fact that I believe that's the reason the war started. Because Biden went out and said that they could join NATO, and he shouldn't have said that. As soon as he said that, I said,
okay.
You know what? You're going to have a war now. And
he was so right. Oh my God, what a great prediction, Trump. Master of foreign affairs.
You're going to have a war now, and I was right about that. This is a war that would have never happened if I were president.
But you don't think it's President Biden's fault, not President Putin? I mean, he's the one.
I think Biden is incompetent, and I think when he said that they could join NATO, I thought that was a very stupid thing to say. Probably good today. They're a little bit soft.
I still don't understand why we didn't have peace on day one if we were just going to demand Ukraine fully concede with absolutely no concessions from Russia. What are the real ramifications of Ukraine joining NATO? To be fair, and people don't talk about this, especially on Trump's side, there is a huge issue for Russia if Ukraine joins NATO, and that's that Russia wouldn't be able to invade Ukraine with absolutely no accountability. So that is like a huge issue that Russia would have to face, is that they can't just militarily invade their neighbor on a whim, which is pretty shitty for Russia. So there is that. I have a follow-up question related to my last point. Do you think that Elon Musk or Trump possesses the competency to do real damage to government, or are they too stupid to actually permanently harm government, or is it because they are stupid that they can harm government even worse? Curious to hear what you think. I don't know. It literally could be any of the three of those. The issue is that, like, as we keep moving forward, like, they can cause harm in ways that, like, normalizing certain types of behavior that are damaging to, I mean, in some ways they've already damaged the reputation of the United States abroad, the stability and how we're viewed abroad. Like, I wouldn't say permanently, but it would take more than one other presidency to undo. And also, I'm saying this, and we're literally just in the first, we're not even a month in yet. Oh, are we about to see? Well, I was going to say we're about to see mass government resignations. We've already seen quite a few from the departments that Doge is raping. What weight does NATO actually offer anymore? It seems clear in the case of an attack on a NATO member now, the U.S. could, with fairly high probability, simply break or ignore the commitment. We don't talk about that microfied, but that is a possibility, and I wonder how much Putin is considering that. I'm surprised he doesn't lob a missile into Poland or some shit just to see what would happen. The top federal prosecutor in Manhattan resigned after being ordered to drop corruption charges against New York City Mayor Eric Adams. Nice. The problem is that this is just like a lose-lose, because, like, should you participate in the system? I mean, no. You can resign, sure, but then they're going to fill it with a loyalist. Like, what's the correct action? I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. Is New York State going to go after him? Can they? I don't know if New York State has appropriate jurisdiction, or if the crimes that he were being accused of are state crimes as well. I'm not sure. I don't know the answer to that. I don't know why these people resign, though, instead of just getting fired. That is a good question. I don't know what the answer to that is. Why did he resign? Because it was a bullshit. Because this is stuff that we normally say as like a hyperbole, except this is actually what's happening. Is as long as you go and you make nice with Donald Trump, you will be forgiven or excused of all of your crimes. That is like verbatim. That is what is happening, and that's what's like at stake now. Before 2025? Why doesn't this work all the time? Do I have to do before 2024? Does this not? Do I have to do like the whole date thing? Is that? Am I retarded? Do I have to have it in fucking quotes? There's no way that's it. Does it have to be in the beginning of the query? Okay, whatever. Fuck me, I guess. You changed the format. Did I? It's dash before. Wait, do you really need that? No, fuck you. That didn't work either. Okay, I don't care. Whatever. Regardless, this was 3 weeks ago. New York City Mayor Eric Adams' relationship with President Trump is alarming Democrats who question the embattled mayor's motives and his ongoing legal challenges. Adams sat down with Trump for a meeting days before the president was sworn in and caught attention for a last-minute change of his schedule to attend Trump's inauguration on Monday. Adams has argued the importance of having a relationship with Trump as mayor of the country's largest city for the benefit of his constituents. But this also comes as Adams, who's up for re-election in November, faces the start of a bribery trial amid speculation that Trump could pardon him. So this article was wrong and stupid because Trump doesn't need to pardon him. Trump can just dismiss all charges. That's cute, though, that they thought that Trump would issue a pardon instead of literally just killing the investigation, and I'm sorry, it's not even investigation, or killing the case entirely, which is what Trump did. So it's funny that this is literally what happened. As long as you fly down and you chat with Trump and you tell him you'll be loyal, Trump will do everything he can to take care of you federally, criminally. It's a racket, actually. Unironically, this is a racket. But do federal state departments all get their delegations from the executive? I know they come under it because federal government, but don't states have some autonomy? Same for federal, who stay in for life. To be clear, I'm completely dumb on how the system works. No, states have no say in anything when it comes to running the federal government. That's in the purview of the federal government. I think every executive branch person is nominated by the president. There might be some explicitly that are called out separately, but why can't the state charge him with corruption and continue the case? Or does he have jurisdiction over the mayor? I mean, one, I don't know if these same federal charges exist on the state level. I don't know if these are, this is like what I asked before. Everybody made fun of me because apparently it's a ridiculous question. But like, for instance, I don't know if you can commit treason against a state or like insurrection against a state or like corrupt, like foreign bribery against a state. I don't know if those are state crimes or if the fact that it has to do with foreign people always makes these federal crimes. I don't know. I just don't know the answer to that. It might be that if you're accepting foreign bribes, that's always in the purview of the federal government and not the state government. I don't know what the answer is to that question. But also it could be that if the federal government was the one doing this investigation and now they've decided to kill the investigation or rather get rid of the charges, dismiss them because of Trump. I don't know if New York State decides to charge him. I don't know if New York State's even investigated that. New York State might have no idea what the actual information is there. And I don't know if the federal government would even be willing to share. So Doge website is live. Initial site, X feed posts, consolidated government org chart, enormous manual effort, consolidating 16,000 plus offices. Summary of the massive regulatory state, including the unconstitutionality index. Ratio of rules written by unelected bureaucrats to laws passed by Congress. How do you think you implement a law? You have to have a rule. What the fuck do you think rules are? So have you already have you deep dive research of journalist Dave Troy on Trump, Musk, Russ, Brawligarch, Christian nationalist motivation goals, include influence of Alexander Dugin and Curtis Yarvin, destroy U.S., great explanation for all of it. Nope. You meant legislative is appointed and executive voted. At least that's how I thought it works. No. Legislature, the lawmakers, your House and Senate people are voted on by the individual states, and then the president is voted on by the states. But for people inside the executive branch, the president picks those people, and then the Senate confirms those people, I believe. I don't know if there's exceptions to certain departments or offices, if Congress has a special carve-out for individual people, but generally that's how the process works. Wow, what a great website. Just reposting tweets on my own federal fucking government, my tax dollars going to fucking Elon Musk in another way. An official website of the U.S. government. Feels good. Savings. Receipts coming soon. No later than Valentine's Day. Great. Workforce. All of this information was probably already publicly available, but okay. Large independent agencies. Cabinet level agent. Oh wait, actually wait. A lot of this information was publicly available. I know because I bookmarked it on the Federal Register. Cool. I'm glad that they've reorganized information here onto another web page to be more Web 3.0-y. I hope they put this on the blockchain somewhere. Oh, nice. No workforce data yet. Okay. Allegedly, that website is hosted in Singapore. I mean, what do you mean allegedly? Wait, I don't want this fucking... No, wait, there's no way it's hosted in Singapore. Because it would be, it's a US government site. It has to be hosted in the US, I would imagine, right? Not necessarily? No? Oh god, you know what else is fucking gross? Yeah, fuck, someone in YouTube chat just said Twitter is charging big bucks for UI implementations. Don't forget that. This here is probably not scraped. They're probably paying for Twitter's new insane API access, I bet, in order to get this data too, huh? Must be nice. I wonder how much money they pay for it. Unconstitutionality index. Wow. These are just people who just don't know how government works, I guess. You know what? It's funny, actually. It's kind of funny, I guess, because this is one of those areas where the same retard thought that I've heard Elon Musk give about software development is the same retard thought that he's giving to that. I'll be honest, I'll reiterate again, I don't know fuck all about code. In my mind, this just, heuristically, this feels right to me, and I don't even think anybody could talk me out of it. When somebody talks about how productive a worker is, and they express it in terms of like, how many lines of code per month does this person contribute or whatever, that just feels like the most retarded, stupid fucking shit in the universe. Like, how many lines of code? That's how we're measuring how good of an employee. And it's funny because now he's doing the same thing here. Well, look how many words there are here. Must be bad. Must be corrupt. Look at how many rules they've made. That must be bad. Like, oh, okay. But I think I've heard Elon say that. Like these guys only do 100 lines of code or 1,000. It's like, okay, Jesus. Is this unironically your country right now, or are you guys trolling? It's just a troll, bro. Don't worry. Did you see the claim that the government doesn't use SQL? He's actually retarded. Listen, I don't know anything about database structure, okay? Apparently, the government does use SQL, but I've heard other people say that, like, government systems could be old as fuck and they don't. I don't even know. I have no idea. I don't actually even know what SQL is. Initially, I thought SQL was how information was stored in a database, but it might just be like a front-end, like, querying thing. I have no fucking idea. I don't know. I don't know real software. We just meme here. We just repost memes from Programmer Humor. Forgive me for being a Canuck. Does the United States have a dedicated civics course in most states? Here in Canada, at least in my province, we roll history, politics, civics, into social studies, and it's mandatory until high school graduation. I consider myself and my fellow leaves competent on government due to these courses. Is there a similar thing in America? I don't know. I feel like we learned it, but for some reason I don't remember any of it, and it seems like, I don't know, it seems like nobody knows anything. Destiny, you can learn basic SQL in like 5 minutes. Yeah, I feel like I did a long time ago for some fucking meme shit. Like, you can build like a very simple database and learn like very simple querying pretty easily. But I mean, it's not like that doesn't make you like a fucking database, like a database architect or some bullshit. Did you see Trump refer to Trudeau as Governor Trudeau? Yeah, he does. He's been doing that a lot. Yeah. Listen, I agree with you, though I will say I work at a big company and they do use total lines of code to some degree that I think is excessive, more than just, did you code this half? Based. Do you think you learned more in school or post-school? Well, post-Vyvanse, I think I've learned more after school now. I learned a lot in high school. My general base of knowledge, I think, was pretty high, but... Did you figure out what else to do during stream besides doomer shit? No. We're just dooming. There has to be someone in history that has some understanding to fight back against these flood tactics. I don't know. We'll keep reading our Hitler book. But I don't know... the internet didn't exist back then. It's pretty different now. What a waste of taxpayer money. Kanye would have done it for free. USAID paid $3 million to a rapper in Gaza to produce anti-Semitic rap songs.
And
what's the source for this?
North Africa Subcommittee.
The multimedia marketplace.
Governor, that's what we'd call you in the South if you were thinking about running for governor. Governor, I want to get to your hearing today
Preview.
with Fed
The
Chairman
multimedia
Powell.
marketplace.
Let's start first.
What am I hearing? What is this noise? Okay.
So with USAID, we were just talking about it. I support PEPFAR. I support these programs because they save so many lives. But I also support it
Preview.
strategically as
The
an old
marketplace.
Cold War conservative. I understand that boots on the ground are important, but also humanitarian aid is important. It's also important what intel we pick up, whether it's from the Ivory
The
Coast or
multimedia
Sudan
marketplace.
or other parts of Africa and other countries.
You should investigate all of the Doge BS and organize it so DGGs can fight back easily. Right now, like 90% of the lies fall through the cracks. But this is the issue, is that these people's thought patterns are fundamentally broken. So for instance, this is how, if you divorce something from politics, humans, I think actually, when we lose trust, I think we lose it incredibly easily. So like, if you have somebody that tells you 10 true statements and then they tell you a lie, I think it takes a long time. I think it's like 50 more true statements for you to trust them again, depending on what the lie was. Like humans, when trust is broken, it's very, very difficult to earn it back for humans. So if somebody tells you 100 statements and 10 of them are false, it's like, and you can see this if we go to the political world now. You can see this expressed for conservatives who will lose their shit about like Fauci. Oh, he lied about the masks. And it's like, okay, he made like 10,000 statements. Why do we hang on these like one or two statements that were wrong that he made? And even if we grant that these were lies, you know? However, one of the big issues that you run into is when it comes to countering these Elon Musk claims, what the fuck is the point? Like if somebody, this is why I got tired of doing COVID and vaccine misinformation. If you give me 10 false claims and I debunk every single one, and then you give me like an 11th one, like why the fuck are you even trusting this source anymore? I actually lost a couple friends on Discord who would fight with me over Canada's own shit. And they were like, why don't you won't even counter, or I think I already talked about this, you won't even counter this. It's like, this is retarded. Like, no, I'm not going to debunk every bullshit claim that this person made. Like, why do you need more? Why do you still trust this person? Like, shouldn't you be getting your information at a different, like if you're trying to debunk every single thing, your default assumption is you trust or believe them. So no, when they're firing out like 5 or 10 new bullshit claims a day, I don't know what the point of debunking them all is. Because if they were rationally thinking about these things, then after you debunk like 3 of them, they should be like, oh, fuck, okay, this probably isn't trustworthy. Let's get our information from somewhere else. But if it's like, what about this? What about this? What about this? What about this? It's like, okay, this is a waste of time. You're going to believe everything. Like the second I stop debunking, you're going to start believing everything that comes out. Like, yeah, I don't know. How do you measure software developer productivity in your opinion? The total latency of the whole stack. When the latency goes down, the pay goes up, and that's the best thing you can ever do, ever. I have no idea.
Continents. I'm curious what your thought is on how USAID should be approached.
Well, Joe, we're actually going to...
Sorry, that's actually kind of scary. How did you lose this friend exactly over the Candace stuff? Did you go nuclear on them, or did they stop talking to you? I think I went through this on stream. I think I was reading through some of our conversations. But basically, they were watching Candace, and some guy came on who wanted to talk about the missing Malaysian flight. And as I was clicking through and listening, this guy was talking about like the ether, which is like a pseudoscience-y like almost a flat Earth, like we live in the filament type thing. Like ether is not real. I feel stupid even saying this, but I was basically just like, I'm not going to waste my time going through this. I'm like, oh, and then they try to hit me with these like logical fallacies. Like, oh, so just because somebody says one thing wrong, you can dismiss everything. Isn't that what you get mad that the Democrats do to Fauci, or that the Republicans do to Fauci? Or, oh, so just because this person is a conspiracy theorist, you're going to dismiss them? Shouldn't you be able to debunk them easily? And it's like, yeah, but I'm not going to waste my time on this like 3-hour fucking video for this guy that I know is insane. Oh, firmament, not filament, my bad. But yeah, and then eventually they just kept bringing me more and more Candace Owens stuff, and I'm like, bro, I don't care about this. Like, I don't have the time to debunk every crazy. And the thing is that like it'll take me 10 hours to debunk this stupid talking point, and then it doesn't even register with that person, because the next day, like, well, what about this one? It's like, why do you still trust this person? Like, what?
To have a hearing tomorrow on USAID in the Foreign Affairs Committee, and a lot of these issues will be discussed. When you look at a program like PEPFAR, I have been very strong in my support for it. 60% of PEPFAR's program.
I can't. I'm sorry. Is this like an audio watermark? I can't listen to this. I don't care. I'm lost interest. The Doge website appears to be developed and hosted by Outburst Data, run by current Doge employee Kyle Schutt. If you view the source of any page on the Doge website, you'll see that the images are proxied through Cloudflare's image delivery service. Okay. This service is a product by Cloudflare that helps images load quicker, but whenever used, inadvertently leaks a unique ID that ties back to the host's Cloudflare account. The unique ID that Doge is using is the following. Okay. After doing a quick Google search for the Cloudflare account ID, we found a forum post by a user named Kyle Schutt who is asking for help developing a Next.js website on Cloudflare, posting the same account ID as the Doge website in their forum post. Whenever you are working on, I don't even know why I'm giving this advice. I'm not even qualified to give this advice. Guys, if you're working on projects publicly, or if you're working with a GitHub, if you're doing like a public contribution somewhere, or whatever, make sure you have to clean your API keys and your login info and all of this shit. This is such a stupid mistake to make. Or maybe it doesn't matter. Maybe exposing this key doesn't mean anything. Well, I guess the fact that he's now being connected to this kind of does. But like, guys, come on. You should be aware of like the sensitive data that's embedded in links sometimes, or like in keys and shit that shouldn't just be copy pasted into your fucking projects that you're asking for help on. Then again, this guy's probably literally 19 years old, so. Jordan Peterson did get the better of you in your conversation, re COVID on things like transmission, specifically when he cited vax-based travel bans based on likelihood of transmission. No, but okay. After Googling Kyle Schutt's name, we found a now deleted GitHub account which referenced him as the CTO of a company called Outburst Data. There were still more Google results for the Cloudflare account ID, so we went back to Google and continued down the list. We saw the same Cloudflare ID on the America Pack website, showing that the account was being used to host a number of different Elon Musk related websites. After digging into Outburst Data, we found a number of different subdomains related to America Pack, Doge, and WinRed, hosted on the same Outburst Data API domain. This was super interesting to us because the Doge website was deployed a bit atypically compared to the other US government websites we'd seen in the past while participating in responsible disclosure. Thanks to Ian G. Carroll, for the help looking into this. Okay. Yeah, Doge.gov is using Cloudflare for traffic distribution, but its actual backend is hosted on this IP, an IP assigned to Volter in Singapore. This is quite unusual for a U.S. government domain. Hold on. If somebody's connecting to a website through Cloudflare, are you able to see the IP on the other side of what you're connecting to? Does Cloudflare only help you serve websites through this IP, but they don't actually mask any of the backend stuff. I don't actually know how. I don't know like if Cloudflare like rehosts the content on like Edge servers or some bullshit, or traffic distribution is different than the actual server. Yeah, it depends on the config. Okay, that's okay. The actual backend is hosted like an IP. This is quite unusual for a U.S. government domain, which would typically rely on domestic infrastructure or trusted cloud providers. The fact that its backend is running on an offshore VPS provider raises serious concerns about its authenticity and security. .gov domains must be hosted on approved U.S. infrastructure. GSA, CISA, and FedRAMP regulations require domestic or FedRAMP certified hosting. No U.S. .gov site should have a backend running outside the U.S. Compliance policies demand strict control over hosting and traffic routing. Smells like a scam. Whoa. They got that fucking anime terminal. So you know this is like some fucking master trans, like San Francisco computer software developer. Be careful. I don't even know what the curl, I don't know what curl does. Get something. Client URL. Oh, okay. The problem is that we don't have people in power up to the president saying, if you get the vax, you won't get COVID. And yet that was, so we have people in power up to the president saying, if you get the vax, you won't get COVID. And yet that was never properly dealt with. And your response to people making substantive points is no, but okay. Kind of makes it look like you're unwilling to engage and just using fringe conspiracies to strawman people, making legitimate critiques of how COVID was handled by institutions. But that drives people to the fringes more. So here's two things to your point, is that you will say that you don't trust them because of those statements. But then if I show you the 50 million wrong statements the other people made, it goes in one ear and out the other. So one issue is you're not using the same standard, which means that standard is not true. The second issue is nobody said that if you get the vax, you won't get COVID. I looked into so many of these statements. We did it on a stream before. And every time you look at these statements and you look at the full context of where they're coming from, they're talking about herd immunity, that if people get vaccinated, then people will stop transmitting because of herd immunity. Not that it reduces the likelihood of transmission to zero. Like in every statement we looked up, that was the case. Like I went through these, but it's not even worth going through because it's not even going to change your fucking mind on any of it. The only reason you think people said that is because you saw conservative compilations of that.
I kept sitting there saying, maybe I just don't get this guy.
Worst halftime ever.
I didn't like halftime. The music itself is not broad enough or well known enough to reach generations. Fuck.
What did you get your OPSEC knowledge just being around the block? I don't know if I have any OPSEC knowledge. Don't ever ask. Well, clearly I don't. Or at least back in 2022 I didn't. Most of the shit I get, if I know anything, it's because I've either read jokes about it online, and then usually from the joke you can figure out what's true, or Cake or Jader will tell me shit, or scream at me for doing something stupid. No one can understand that if you didn't know the words from beforehand. For this?
Motherfuckers can't tell me nothing.
Oh. Fuck, I just saw an Instagram meme about that. Oh, I'm not gonna remember it. It was like, white people say they don't understand rap, and then white people music, and then it was a link to... Fuck, I don't remember the song. The fuck am I even looking at here? Selected works of Mao Zedong, Sharia, theory, practice, transformations. Why was I linked this? Why do people take borderline offense if they don't like a piece of music? Just ignore it? Because everything is about the fucking culture war these days. Wait, what is Alive by Pearl Jam? Was that the song? Oh, it might have been this song. Maybe, I don't know. I used to think I was retarded growing up because I couldn't understand lyrics to almost any song. I thought I had like fucking aphasia or some... That's not what that is, but I thought I had some issue. I think it's... I listened to too much video game music growing up. That was the issue. No lyrics.
The vast, overwhelming majority of people in this country and around the world hated this show. Most had never heard any of these songs. Had no clue who Kendrick Lamar even is. Was the worst halftime in history. Had no clue who Kendrick Lamar even is. Was the worst halftime in history. It was horrific. Last night gave us the absolute pinnacle of American white guilt. That's what the NFL provided to the viewing audience.
Okay.
A league controlled by spineless men, all walking on eggshells, performing suicidal levels of corporate capitulation to the woke mob. And again, this was all signed and agreed to 2 months before this last election. Let's not just have a rapper, they said. Let's have an obscure rapper that nobody's ever heard of. Ooh, the woke Olympics happening at the NFL. And then they got in too deep. And then everything changed in November. They couldn't change back. The contract had been signed.
Thank you for that volume adjustment. Jesus. I'm begging you to react to the halftime show? I don't even think I can watch that shit. Won't I get DMCA'd or whatever? Let's call it like it is. Lithuania, Latvia, and Estonia are just Russian villages who had their own dialect, but pretty much all spoke Russian and are now pretending to be totally unique countries, cutting off Russian power. Their energy bills have doubled in the last 48 hours. Last time Lithuania mattered was when it was ruled by Poles. Okay. I think these three countries are actually doing like decently well. I remember some guy from Estonia emailed me a long time ago to brag about his country, and they, metric-wise, it seemed like they were doing decently. I think they're doing a lot better than if they were fucking Russian slaves again.
Place your left hand on the Bible and raise your right. I, Robert F. Kennedy, Jr. Bible and raise your.
If this was Biden, there would be a video of just Trump here, staring off to the side and then looking to the right and being like Biden confused about where he's at, by the way.
Right. I, Robert F. Kennedy, Jr.
I, Robert F. Kennedy, Jr.
Do solemnly swear.
Do solemnly swear.
That I will support and defend.
That I will support and defend.
The Constitution of the United States.
The Constitution of the United States.
Against all enemies.
Against all enemies.
Foreign and domestic.
Foreign and domestic.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I will bear true faith and allegiance to the same.
That I take this obligation freely.
That I take this obligation freely.
Without any mental reservation.
Without any mental reservation.
Or purpose of evasion. Duties of the office.
The duties of the office.
On which I am about to enter.
Wow. You know what would be crazy? Is imagine if some actual corrupt HHS guy got in and he was like, you know what? We're going to do Operation Fuck with the Water Supply. Do you remember Amsterdam in The Wire? And the goal is to just like start pumping fucking Ozempic into all of the water supply in the United States. Totally illegal, totally unethical, huge investment of money. Makes the entire country 5 trillion% healthier. Bro, is Ozempic like the actual fucking fountain of youth magic drug? I've seen two things recently. I don't know if any of these have been experimentally validated yet, but one is that supposedly it might have a protective effect against Alzheimer's disease. I don't know if that just has to do with dieting in general or something. I don't know if obesity and Alzheimer's has ever been linked though. And the second is that supposedly it helps with alcoholism. I was reading some people on Reddit just talking about having done Ozempic, like alcoholics. I think I was reading one guy's story. He's like, yeah, I went, I had dinner, I had like 2 drinks, and then I was just done. And then I went home and I didn't feel like I had to get shit-faced. I should say GP1 agonist. Fuck, what do they call? Everybody just says Ozempic. I don't know. Oh, this was reported like 1.5 years ago, almost 2 years ago. Is it semaglutide? Is that what the prescribed thing is being? Oh, fuck it. Okay, prepare for some boredom. We will read this. Why does Ozempic cure all diseases? This is my bullshit guess before we read this. I don't know anything about, I don't know what the GLP-1 receptor even is. My bullshit guess is going to be this GLP-1 receptor has something to do with dopamine or happiness. No, it's not dopamine. It's something to do with things that make you feel happy or satisfied or some bullshit. And a lot of our economy today, like our attention economy, is built around things that like give you quick satisfaction. So this curbs your desire for quick satisfaction and everything. I don't know. That's my guess, but. Fine, the title is an exaggeration, but only a small one. Oh, this is, what, like 6 months ago? GLP-1 receptor agonist medications like Ozempic are already FDA approved to treat diabetes and obesity, but an increasing body of research finds they're also effective against stroke, heart disease, kidney disease, Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, alcoholism, and drug addiction. There's a pattern in fake, scammy alternative medicine. People get excited about some new herb, they invent a laundry list of effects. It improves heart health, softens menopause, increases energy, deepens sleep, clears up your skin. This is how you know it's a fraud. Real medicine works by mimicking natural biochemical signals. Why would you have a signal for have low energy, bad sleep, nasty menopause, poor heart health, and ugly skin? Why would all the herbs' side effects be other good things? Real medications usually shift a system along a trade-off curve. If they hit more than one system, the extras usually just produce side effects. If you're lucky, you can pick out a subset of patients for whom the intended effect is more beneficial than the side effects are bad. That's how real medicine works. But GLP-1 drugs are starting to feel more like the magic herb. Why? Medicine is bad at answering why questions. Often the answer looks like because it modulates ABC transmission, which inhibits XYZ, which signals to MNO, and MNO is involved in the disease. This is all very scientific sounding, but totally fails to satisfy any normal human curiosity. I'm going to discuss a few of GLP-1 drugs' effects on this level, but also try to speculate about some broader principles behind why these medicines seem so magical. Diabetes. This is the one we understand best. When a recently eaten meal reaches food detector cells in your intestine, they release glucagon-like peptide 1. That's GLP-1. This is one of the many hormones that tells your body that you've eaten and that you should adjust its activities accordingly. Various organs have GLP-1 receptors. When they sense GLP-1, they start various digestion-related tasks. Since eating a meal increases blood sugar, your body wants to push blood sugar back down, so GLP-1 tells the pancreas to release more insulin, which means sugar in the bloodstream goes down, and less glucagon, sugar 1. Diabetes involves excessive blood sugar, so this is the profile you want for an anti-diabetic drug. But natural GLP-1 decays within a minute or two, so there's no way to use it as a medication. In 1992, scientists discovered a chemical in Gila monster venom, which looked like GLP-1, activated GLP-1 receptors, but lasted a whole 2 hours. What is this? Based. Oh, it's pronounced Ela, my bad. This became exenatide, the first GLP-1 receptor agonist. One of my favorite paper names is exenatide, from the Gila monster to the pharmacy. By playing around with its structure, Big Pharma was eventually able to create liraglutide, which lasted for 12 hours, semaglutide, which lasts for 1 week, and cafraglutide, which lasts for a month. From the Gila monster to the pharmacy. Objective: to explain the incretin concept and review the pharmacology and clinical utility of exenatide, a new agent for the treatment of patients with type 2 diabetes mellitus, and provide pharmacists with information necessary for counseling patients in the use of exenatide. This paper was published in February of 2006 in the Journal of American Pharmacists Association. Cute, I think. Oh my God. Assessment questions. You may take the assessment test for the program on paper or online. For each question, circle the letter, the answer sheet. Wow, they even give you a little test at the end. This should be in every fucking paper. My God. Look at this guy. Yeah, I agree. Destiny, this is a good point if those dipshits say, why are we using money to study rats or mice for cutting or freezing NIH funding? It would be really interesting to figure out, like, how was this general research funded? Actually, I kind of really want to know that. What was the funding mechanism? I think that's kind of important. What was the funding mechanism for this? I wonder if they would say it in here. Look for the acknowledgments section. I don't know if there are acknowledgements here, are there? Nope. Somebody should go look that up. I don't want to do it. This guy was a researcher at the VA. Link the paper. Here you go. I don't even know if this is where these the Gila monster venom stuff was even first discovered, because it sounds like this paper is about exenatide, which is a GLP-1 receptor agonist, but it wasn't about this discovering a chemical in Gila monster venom. So I don't know where that came from initially, but all of these work the same way. They mimic the natural hormone that the intestine produces to tell your body that it's just eaten. Weight loss. Like most good pharmacologic discoveries, the role of GLP-1 drugs for weight loss was partly accidental. We noticed patients losing weight before we understood why. The science has only recently caught up. There are two plausible places GLP-1 drugs could lower weight: the body or the brain. In the body, they could change stomach contraction rate, hormone production, etc. In the brain, they could control the mental sensation of hunger. To separate these two effects, scientists bred rats that only had GLP-1 receptors in one place or the other. The results were unequivocal. Ozempic and its relatives work in the brain. Although they have some effects in the body, these are short-lived and not really relevant to their mechanism of action for weight loss. What is this thing called? The Gila monster? Or Gila monster? Whatever you linked about research at the VA, this site is not loading for me. Maybe it'll load now, but... The results were unequivocal. Ozempic and its relatives work in the brain. Although they have some effects in the body, these are short-lived and not really relevant to their mechanism of action for weight loss. This is pretty surprising. The brain is protected by the blood-brain barrier, which usually blocks large molecules. Ozempic is a large molecule. Scientists are still figuring out exactly how it gets through. Some of it seems to leak through endothelial cells. Oh, fuck. Didn't we just learn what those are? Endothelial. That was the lining across all of your blood vessels in your body, right? Are specialized epithelial cells that form the inner lining of all blood vessels. Yeah, there we go. Okay. Oh, this works. Thank you. VA researchers discovered a new diabetes drug. What is VA? Does this mean Veterans Affairs? It's not a different VA, right? Researchers discovered a new diabetes drug from an unusual source in the mid-1990s. Dr. John Eng and Jean-Pierre Rothman found that a hormone in the venom of the Gila monster, a large lizard native to the southwestern United States, stimulates the body's insulin production. The hormone, exendin-4, works similar to another hormone called GLP-1, found in the digestive tract of humans. Damn. This is a really good... Jeez. Were you so fascinated by Ozempic? Because it's probably like the largest medical breakthrough since fucking vaccines, maybe, in terms of improving overall health. Like, this is assuming there aren't any huge, maybe more than vaccines, depending on, like... All of this is actual medical advice that Destiny is giving you, chat. Never forget. What? I haven't seen this Ozempic shit outside of the US. I don't know if any other countries have approved it yet for weight loss. Or I don't know, like, if semaglutide is available in other countries yet. Oh, it also might be really expensive too, so. Does it give you pause at all that such a large molecule is able to pass the blood-brain barrier? I don't know. Maybe it has ways of breaking down, or maybe it stimulates something else in the body that gets through the blood-brain barrier. I don't fucking know. Okay. Scientists are still figuring out exactly how it gets through. Some of it seems to leak through endothelial cells, and a little more might make it into the cerebral spinal fluid and then sneak in through the ventricles. What are ventricles? Human spinal cord ventricles. Ventricles of the brain. The ventricular system allows the CSF to circulate in a designated path. Cerebral spinal fluid is important because if you drink it, you turn into a titan. Did you know that? Okay, don't care. It's like 120 pounds a month in the UK. Private, Wegovy is the best one for weight loss. Oh, okay, maybe it is there. Okay. But this isn't very much, and it can't reach most of the brain. Instead, the little bit that reaches the brain activates a part of the brain stem called the nucleus tractus solitari, which acts as a sort of relay station, producing its own GLP-1 as a neurotransmitter, which it sends to other parts of the brain. This new neuronal GLP-1 makes it to at least two other brain regions, the arcuate nucleus and the mesolimbic system. I'm not going to look all this shit up. You know what? Actually, I am, because fuck it. I don't give a fuck. What is the arcuate nucleus? Is a part of the... is located in the mediobasal hypothalamus. What does that mean? The middle part of... what does hypothalamus do? Isn't this like regulatory systems? Japanese quails reveal that the mediobasal hypothalamus is the key region in the brain at the control of photoperiodic responses. Lesions in the MBH have been shown to block the photoperiodic response under long day conditions. Okay, I don't know. Morphological and functional entity with the median eminence, the ARC-ME. The ARC comprises several distinct types of neurons controlling prolactin release, food intake, and metabolism, as well as reproduction and onset of puberty. The ME lacks a blood-brain barrier and provides an entry for peripheral signals, nutrients, leptin, and ghrelin. ARC neurons are adjacent to the wall of the third ventricle. This facilitates the exchange of signals from and to the cerebral spinal fluid. The ventricular wall is composed of tanycytes that serve different functions. Okay, good enough. The arcuate nucleus is a pinhead-sized collection of neurons in the hypothalamus. By this point, there are dozens of master regulators for hunger, but the master regulator is probably the ventromedial part of this structure. It has two populations, AGRP neurons, which make you feel hungry, and POMC neurons, which make you feel full. Sticking to our animal theme, AGRP neurons are so named because they produce agouti-related peptide. A Gaudy-related peptide is related to a Gaudy signaling protein, so named because it was first investigated in agouti, a South American rodent that looks like a kind of mouse, or looks kind of like a mouse with Down syndrome. The original agouti protein is most involved in coat color and might be part of the chemical package affecting skin color in humans. Okay. Each of these populations is downstream of several other slightly less masterful master regulators of hunger. One of these is a group called TRH neurons. The TRH neurons use GABA to inhibit the AGRP neurons, thus making you less hungry. And the TRH neurons have GLP-1 receptors. So GLP-1 and GLP-1 agonist drugs like Ozempic activate the TRH neurons, which in turn inhibit the AGRP neurons, which in turn makes you less hungry. I appreciate the paper linked above because it uses rabies-based connectomics. That is, in order to figure out which neurons connect to neuron X, the scientists infect neuron X with rabies and see which other neurons are affected. We'll come back to the mesolimbic system later. For now, we have this flow chart. Ozempic, blood-brain barrier, nucleus tractus solitari, activates via GLP-1, inhibit via GLP-1, does all this bullshit. Arcuate, the arcuate nucleus, inhibit via GABA, arcuate nucleus, AGRP cells for hunger. So this is inhibiting hunger, I guess. And then ventral tegmental area, activated via dopamine, nucleus accumbens, and then gives you reward. Okay. Wow. Interlude. Do all treatments work through GLP-1? The converse of the original question, how many treatments that we didn't, or that we thought didn't involve GLP-1 are actually just GLP-1 drugs in disguise. How about diet? 1,000 diet gurus insist that it's not just about calorie counting. Some foods help you lose weight faster than others. Why should that be? Remember, the intestine naturally releases GLP-1 when it detects food in order to tell the rest of the body to be full. What if some foods make the small intestine release more GLP-1 than others? A diet focused on those foods could be like nature's Ozempic. Every diet guru who reads that sentence is calling their lawyer to see if they can trademark the phrase nature's Ozempic. So we have 9 foods and supplements that increase GLP-1 naturally, 6 foods that increase GLP-1 levels, and foods that mimic GLP-1. I regret to tell you that these are mostly the ones you already knew were healthy. Fish, eggs, vegetables, whole grains. There's also some discussion of supplements, including psyllium, plausible, and curcumin. All results related to curcumin are false until proven otherwise. Needless to say, people have already written up arguments for why the GLP-1 evidence supports the paleo diet, the Mediterranean diet, the Ayurvedic diet, the carnivore diet, the plant-based diet. How about exercise? Sure. See, for example, effects of exercise on glucogen like peptide 1. Does exercise potentiate the effect of GLP-1 treatment? And endurance training improves GLP-1 sensitivity and glucose tolerance in overweight women. Most of this seems to happen by making tissues more sensitive to the effects of GLP-1. Why? Exercise creates very high demand for glucose, so it kind of makes sense that it's a signal for the body to focus on keeping its glucose system well tuned. Whenever we discover a new wonder drug, scientists rush to demonstrate that all those lifestyle changes, the ones you should do anyway, actually work through the same mechanism as the wonder drug. So, for example, when SSRIs were the hot new thing, psychiatrists announced that all the normal stuff that brightens your mood worked through serotonin. Sunlight, serotonin. Exercise, serotonin. Having a good trauma-free childhood, serotonin. And the cold light of day and or SSRI patients expiring, most of these effects were later found to be fake, or at least too small to care about. Now that GLP-1 drugs are exciting / on patent, we're going through the same process. Everything works through GLP-1. GLP-1 makes the sun shine. GLP-1 makes the grass grow. Nobody knows what caused the Big Bang, but cosmologists are increasingly convinced that GLP-1 might have been involved. You should come back in 10 years and check which of these claims have survived. My guess is very few. For a while, I was taken in by one of these, bariatric surgery, aka gastric bypass. This is a giant mystery. We tell patients that it works by making the stomach smaller, so you can't fit as much food in, but that's just a tiny part of the effect. We thought that was what would cause weight loss. We invented the surgery on that basis, but surprise, a bunch of metabolic parameters change before the patient has even had time to lose any weight, and the weight loss tracks these metabolic parameters, not the stomach size. Sometimes scientists thought that maybe this was GLP-1 too. After all, the intestine secretes GLP-1 in response to food. The stomach usually digests a lot of food before it even reaches the intestine. But if you remove / shrink the stomach, it can't do that, and much more food hits the intestine. That means that the intestine releases much more GLP-1, and that means that the patient feels much more full, much more quickly. Cool theory, but it turns out gastric bypass works just as well on rats with no functional GLP-1 receptors. Now this is back to being a giant mystery. Addiction. Speaking of giant mysteries, it's not surprising that an intestinal hormone could treat both diabetes and obesity. When you eat a big meal, your body needs to deal with the sudden blood sugar spike, and it also needs to signal to the brain to be full. At least in retrospect, all of this makes sense. But Ozempic and other GLP-1 drugs appear to be a promising treatment for alcoholism, smoking, stimulant addiction, opioid addiction, and maybe even behavioral addictions like shopping. Why? And then a tweet from him. Multi-step nominative determinism, GLP-1 GLP-1RAs are being investigated as a way to suppress alcoholism. GLP-1RAs are based on a chemical found in Gila monster venom. 3. Gila monsters were first described by zoologist Edward Drinker Cope. Based. Let's go back to the second pathway by which GLP-1 causes weight loss, which goes through the mesolimbic system, aka ventral tegmental area, and nucleus accumbens, aka the reward center. The nucleus tractus solitari uses neurotransmitter GLP-1 to inhibit the ventral tegmental area, which then releases less dopamine into the nucleus accumbens. Dopamine levels in the nucleus accumbens act as a multiplier for reward. That is, a given reward feels more rewarding when there's high dopamine in those areas. Speculatively, there are 2 reasons you might eat. First, because you feel hungry. Second, because you crave delicious food. So to fulfill its evolutionary role of making you eat less, GLP-1 needs to do 2 things. First, it needs to make you less hungry via the arcuate nucleus/master hunger regulator pathway. Second, it needs to make you crave food reward less via the mesolimbic/reward center pathway. Broad spectrum dampening of the reward system is a terrible fate. Some antipsychotic drugs like haloperidol do this. Take too much haloperidol and you'll sit motionless until you die because no action feels worth it. But the existence of silver bullet anti-addiction medications, Ozempic isn't the only one, naltrexone seems to treat a whole host of different drug and behavioral addictions, suggests that there's also a sort of narrow spectrum dampening, one of which affects addictions and nothing else. Why? Isn't addiction just the extreme version of normal wanting? Apparently not. None of these anti-addictive drugs affect wholesome rewards like the feeling of a job well done or a child's smile, just drug addictions and a few compulsive behaviors like porn and gambling. Maybe the job well done and the child's smile get implemented partly through some system other than dopamine, oxytocin, or maybe these medications lop off some extreme part of the reward distribution that only addictive drugs ever reach in real life. But why? Why did God give your brain a special lever that only porn and cocaine could pull? GLP-1 suggests maybe this was originally a food reward system, or at least food was a big enough part of its portfolio that it was a weird but functional hack for a satiety signaling chemical to just turn off a whole subsection of the reward system. You're already full and well nourished. Why would you need the ability to crave things? Food craving is an old and evolutionarily conserved system. Wow, look at that monkey drinking. Oh my goodness. Here's Skibica. Skibica? Wait, hold on. Oh, this is the same link. Okay. I have so much to say about this. Listen to the Huberman podcast. I don't think Huberman is a good source for any kind of information, but selective and local VTA microinjection of EX4 consistently yields reduction in food intake and body weight. These intake suppressive effects are not macronutrient specific, since the intake of both palatable, high-fat or high-sugar food and normal chow is reduced by GLP-1R activation. The finding that exogenous stimulation of GLP-1R results in suppression of food intake irrespective of its macronutrient content is perhaps consistent with previous data that indicates that all macronutrients, carbohydrates, fats, and proteins, can induce the release of GLP-1 from the intestinal L cells. Intake of chow, however, is only reduced if the rats are overnight fasted or in ad libitum fed rats. Ad libitum, what does this mean? As much or as often as necessary. Okay. If they are fed as much. Okay. If the chow is available as the only source of calories, in contrast, if a choice between chow and a high-fat diet is given to satiated rats, EX4 appears to selectively reduce the high-fat intake, but surprisingly increase the chow intake. These findings can lead us to conclude that VTA-GLP-1R activation might result in a lack of preference for high-energy/fat food. Interesting. So this is basically saying that when you give this EX4 is this GLP-1 agonist or GLP-1R, whatever thing, that the rats actually prefer to eat healthier food if they have this injection. Interesting. Okay. I take GLP-1 for my ADHD. It's as effective, if not more, than my Adderall. Completely silenced the constant noise in my head demanding dopamine. Okay. Interesting. If I'm understanding this right, the researchers found two separate behavioral effects of GLP-1. First, it made rats eat less, but second, when presented with very tasty food versus normal food, it made the rats stop preferring the very tasty food. At least in this study, the extreme part of the reward system that governs addiction got used to determine how much to prefer very tasty food over normal food. If you want to learn more about GLP-1 receptor agonists and addiction, including the application to public policy, I highly recommend the Recursive Adaptation blog. Alzheimer's and Parkinson's. Okay, now God is just trolling us. GLP-1 receptor agonists, a new treatment in Parkinson's disease, gives us this diagram. GLP-1 receptor agonists, inflammation, prevents the activation of glial cells, suppresses pro-inflammatory cytokines, implication of AMP pathway. Okay, mitochondria reduces apoptosis, reduces oxidative stress, aids mitochondrial regeneration, protein folding, prevents the aggregation of alpha-syn and increases the clearance of alpha-syn, and then autophagy. Or is it phagy? This is cell death or something, isn't it? I don't remember. Enhances autophagic activities, increases anti-apoptic proteins, reduce pro-apoptic protein. Is this has to do with like cell death or cell regulation of life cycle? Is a cellular process where the body breaks down or recycles its own damaged or unnecessary components. Okay. Is this an actual paper or news article? Oh, this thing? This is just a blog by Scott Alexander, who was a he's like the starter, I guess, of the rationalist movement, but he's I think he's a board certified psychiatrist, so he's been to med school and all that, but phagy is eating. It's always something eating something. Gotcha. Which, as is a running theme in this post, doesn't make me feel more enlightened in any way. Why does GLP-1 do all these things? Diabetes is a well-known risk factor for Parkinson's, Alzheimer's, and other dementias. The exact mechanism isn't clear, but the extra sugar that diabetics have in their blood tends toward uncontrolled reactions with various other chemicals, creating slightly toxic glycosylated species that damage the cells. So the simplest mechanism by which GLP-1 drugs could prevent dementia is by lowering the concentration of these toxic metabolites. But GLP-1 drugs also prevent dementia in non-diabetics, so there has to be more going on. Most of the relevant papers say the drugs work by preventing inflammation. This is a catch-all term for the immune response to microbes. Although it helps fight the microbes, it's slightly toxic to the rest of the body and generally bad unless you're actively fighting an infection. In chronic inflammation, i.e., the thing most of us with modern diets have all the time, general bad health damages the body, the immune system mistakes the damage for a microbial infection, and it provokes a constant low-grade inflammatory response. This is bad, so if you're not fighting an infection, anti-inflammatories are generally pretty useful. There are lots of anti-inflammatory drugs. Aspirin is one, ibuprofen is another, but inflammation is a multifaceted process and no one drug can stop it entirely. GLP-1 drugs seem to be especially potent anti-inflammatories that stop some of the inflammatory processes most implicated in dementia. How? Research is still very early, but the best explanation I can find is in central glucogen-like peptide 1. Receptor activation inhibits toll-like receptor agonist-induced inflammation. Fuck me, dude. Central glucogen-like peptide 1. So this is a GLP-1 receptor activation. So when you activate the receptor, it inhibits or it stops toll-like receptor agonist-induced inflammation. So it stops inflammation somehow. I don't know what toll-like receptor, if that's a... Okay. This team found that there are no GLP-1 receptors on immune cells, so these drugs can't be affecting the immune system directly. The researchers hypothesized that the drugs must be affecting the parts of the brain that regulate the immune system, especially the back of the brainstem. So they injected some of the drugs directly into the brain, and sure enough, this was enough to produce the effect. How did the brain cells communicate with the immune cells? The team tediously injected one of each kind of chemical that blocks each kind of chemical communication system and found that only the alpha blockers and the delta opioid blockers prevented GLP-1's anti-inflammatory effects. So probably GLP-1 binds to neurons in the brainstem. Those signal to other neurons and immune cells via alpha adrenergic receptors and delta opioid receptors, and then the immune cells initiate an inflammatory reaction. Same question as before. Why would an appetite-related hormone do this? I can't find anyone studying this question, so I asked Claude. It had some surprisingly clever guesses. Food itself causes a mild inflammatory response because it usually contains suspicious-looking foreign chemicals. Insofar as this is a common false alarm, the body might want to suppress immune responses when it knows food is coming. But also, when a meal comes in, the body diverts other resources towards the digestion process. This is why a big lunch makes you tired. Maybe some of those resources come from the immune system, so immune cells stand down while you're digesting. That's as far as I got with this one, but this is a very active area of research, and we'll hopefully know more soon. And many more. Just this month, the study found GLP-1 drugs cut risk of some obesity-associated cancers. I haven't had a chance to read it yet, but I expect this to be a theme of the next few years. More new exciting GLP-1 effects than we can keep up with. Along with all the specific mechanisms above, there's a more general question. What do we think when we keep finding new indications for these drugs? Modern Westerners eat too much food. This is bad in various ways. So if GLP-1 drugs reduce obesity, that has the potential to be good in various ways. This makes sense and is definitely part of the story, but some of these effects, like e.g. addiction, aren't obviously linked to obesity, and others that seem linked to obesity, e.g. heart disease, turn out to be obesity independent. Scientists can observe them even in weight-neutral rats, so this doesn't explain everything on its own. Some of those explanations will be evolutionary. GLP-1 is a master signal for the starving versus well-fed state. Lots of bodily processes change based on whether you're starving versus well-fed. Naively, you'd expect that there would be as many side effects as positive effects. Wouldn't some conditions be better in the starving state? But maybe that's not true. In particular, maybe the inflammatory nature of the starving state really hurts a lot of systems. Maybe we'll manage to trace everything back to various food-related pathways until all of GLP-1's effects feel natural and satisfying. Other explanations will be more sinister. Pharma companies are always looking for more reasons to prescribe their drugs, and even unaffiliated scientists can get caught up in the excitement. Being a GLP-1 researcher now is probably a pretty great job, just like being an SSRI researcher 30 years ago. Probably some of these won't replicate. In a few years, we'll be left with a thinner and more believable profile of GLP-1 effects. But I don't believe it's all pharma marketing. These drugs seem really special. We're going to have an exciting next few years as we fully unwrap this weird new gift nature has given us. And by nature, I mean this guy. Thanks to Stephen Guyenet, who reviewed an earlier draft of this post. As always, any mistakes are mine alone. And 2, sex is the other extremely rewarding, sometimes addictive behavior, old enough that it might have shaped the evolution of the reward system. Do GLP-1 receptor agonists lower libido? Mouse studies say maybe, but human studies say no. A very straightforward extrapolation of the Skibika result might suggest GLP-1 drugs shouldn't change libido overall, but should make people less intensely prefer good sex to bad sex. So far, nobody has managed to get that study premise past an IRB. Sorry. Wow. Okay, cute article. There you go.